Dame time or your guy Joel Embiid? I know you originally had him. Who do you think's making the stronger case for MVP at this moment?
Damian Lillard. And Jokic would be my pick for MVP by a hair over Lillard, because in the last couple weeks, games that were not understandable given the load he's had to carry this season. Look, Embiid game for game, I'm not arguing. He was my MVP, as you remember, Stephen A., to start the season right up until he got hurt. Missed a little too much time. Even at that point, he had missed some games, but I was like, he's playing so much better than everyone else. That included LeBron, by the way. I thought he was clearly the best in the league. I'd have given him the MVP. Also carrying team and all that stuff, missed too much time. You know who hasn't missed time? Damian Lillard. You know who didn't have a team around him, but was carrying his team to a good record anyway and winning games with enormous? Damian Lillard. Stephen A., it was you who set up on this show, what was that, maybe not even a month ago, something like that, talking about you needed to apologize to Damian Lillard because we have not paid enough attention to him. Now, partly that's because he doesn't play in a glamour market. Partly that's because it's the West Coast and the games are on late. Partly it's because he resembles another guard that we've seen who's done amazing things, Steph Curry. I get, and Steph has already done that, right? That's all true. But Damian Lillard, just forget about the fact that he carries his team, that he hasn't chased rings, that he stayed right where he was, that he's the leader that he is. When you put up numbers just about as good as anyone's, when you don't miss any time, when you lead your team in spite of injuries all around you, no one there to help you, and you are, no one disputes this, by the way, the most clutch player in the game since he's come in the league. Not only do our eyeballs say that, and by reputation we believe it, all the numbers say it. You're also the most clutch guy? No. Damian Lillard right now is neck and neck with Jokic for MVP ahead of Embiid.
Well, I'm not going to dispute that because I definitely think, as I pointed out a few weeks ago, it's time that we give Damian Lillard his props. This dude is playing sensational basketball throughout this season. To do so without C.J. McCollum, without Nurkic for a vast majority of those times, inserting new guys like Covington and others into the mix, Damian Lillard deserves all the credit in the world. Here's where the problem lies. And Joel Embiid brought this up. Number one, as it pertains to Joel Embiid, they're number one in the Eastern Conference. They've got the best record in the Eastern Conference and one of the best records in basketball, and that has to count for something. Now, they've been like 8-6 this year without Joel Embiid, and I think they went like 7-2 or 8-1 in a 9-game stretch or so that he was out over a couple of weeks or so because of that knee injury. But the bottom line is that nobody can deny that he's been absolutely positively dominant. In the 5 games that he's played pretty much since his return, other than a 14-point game, he had 35, 36, 39, 38, if I remember correctly. He's been pretty much unstoppable and on both ends of the floor, and the Sixers are the number 1 seed. So that's an argument that you would make in favor of Embiid, even though he's played 15 less games. In the case of the Joker, Nikola Jokic, that is where it gets really, really interesting and dicing for Damian Lillard as it pertains to his aspirations. You're talking about a guy in Jokic that's averaging 26, 11, and 8, nearly 9 assists per game. You're talking about a guy that's playing for the Denver Nuggets that's the number 4 seed in the Western Conference, 3.5 games better than the 6th-seeded Portland Trail Blazers. And he's clearly the face of that franchise, and he's clearly the leader of that franchise in terms of who's the go-to man, who's the franchise player for them, even though we all love Jamal Murray and definitely hope he gets better after suffering his torn ACL the other night. But you look at Jokic, and there is just no question what he brings to the table as well. So if you're Damian Lillard and you have to contend with Jokic out west, who's got a better record, he's 3.5 games better, he hasn't missed a single game, pretty much just he's been just as available as you have been. The one argument that you can make in Damian Lillard's favor is the fact that C.J. McCollum missed so many games along with Nurkic. That's the best argument you can make outside of the fact that he's clutch as well. He's the best clutch player in basketball. One could easily argue with Damian Lillard and what he's been able to do since 2012. But on one hand, again, it's Embiid winning, number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, and in the West, you've got an MVP candidate that has a better record and has been just as reliable as you have been in terms of games being played while he's doing that. That's where Damian Lillard runs into a roadblock But it's an interesting and compelling argument to make for everybody.
Look, I'll say this about Embiid. Embiid, it was on Basketball Reference today. There are certain offensive ratings, defensive ratings, and usage rate. Right now, if the season ended now, he would have a combination of those numbers that no one's ever had. The other guys on the list are Michael Jordan appears on the list 3 times, and someone else amazing appears on the list. I'll tell you right now, and Kevin Durant appears on that list once. Pretty good company, right? And who knows if he ends the season like that. But game for game, Embiid has been the best player in basketball. His main competition comes from James Harden, because Harden's had an amazing impact this season. Both of them have missed too much. I'm going to take them off. You can't miss 19 games and win the MVP when there are this many great players in the league. So I'm taking them off the list. You make a very good case for Jokic, and in fact, I agree with you. I would give it to Jokic by a hair, because as I said, there were a couple games in recent weeks where Lillard fell off his incredibly high standards. And it's understandable because he's exhausted, right? He's had to carry the load. Let's see what Jokic does now without Jamal Murray the rest of the way, because that's what Lillard's been dealing with more than that. No, you mentioned it, no McCollum, no Nurkic. And anyway, his team isn't as good as Jokic's, and it's not just because you may think Jokic is better than Lillard. So Lillard's been having to carry this enormous load the entire time, and as a result of that, I think he deserves extra credit. I still have Jokic ahead of him by a hair. I think it's Jokic and Lillard. It's a 2-horse race as we come down the stretch.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.